Chapter 5. The cancer specialist offered treatment with interferon, a drug with unpleasant side effects and a terribly small success rate. It would involve 9 months of treatment, and Julia for the first time wrestled with the balance of the quality of life. She wasn't keen on the idea, but to me the odds sounded infinitely better than no odds. It was the first time that she questioned the uncertainty of her future. My girls and I reeled with Julia under the blow, and we were beginning to understand the specialist's offer reflected the gravity of the situation, beginning to understand the roller coaster in which we sat precariously perched on a giddy height, and that we were unable to control the rapid descent into the troughs, that there was no brake, no handle to pull. We were firmly harnessed in for the ride. Barely had she started to wrestle with the decision to take interferon than the surgeon offered her further surgery. He felt it was worth removing the newly emerged lump. There was still the matter of the growth on her liver, but somehow Julia had dismissed it as unimportant, and the surgeon did not seem to be pressing the matter. I was still at work, and so her sister Katrina attended the medical appointments. My knowledge was second-hand, but the surgery appeared to be all that was required to rid her of her burden. It was such a concentrated time. I marvel when I look back at how little time had actually passed since the removal of her lymph nodes, her wounds still fresh, hardly healed. Time seemed condensed, and it was not yet mid-March. Jimmy was still building the retaining wall for Julia's father. It seemed he wasn't terribly keen to get out of bed in the morning. He approached work without any sense of urgency, and while Julia could understand her father's complaint about Jimmy's attitude, she was happy to have someone to keep her company. And besides, she was always one for stretching the boundaries between night and day herself. She did, however, comment on his reluctance to ever contribute to the household budget. He could at least buy a loaf of bread, she complained. Julia never came to my house or anyone else's empty-handed. Her sense of what was right and proper deeply ingrained. But love has the ability to dissipate years of belief. It transpired that he was without a car. The one he had driven to my house was in fact only on loan. He owned a small grip with a minimum of clothes, a mobile phone, and that was about it. He was strong enough to build the retaining wall effortlessly, carrying the stones up through the 3 floors to the top of the block as the house stood on a hill. However, it was business that occupied his mind, and with the demise of the installation business, he now had his sights set on installing solar panels. There was a business partner whom I never met, but Julia did before the installation went bust. He seemed to be legitimately engaged in his future. His situation was understandable. The girlfriends were all delighted to see Julia in love, even though Jimmy didn't engage in conversation with them and remained aloof during visitations. My girls complained they found it very hard to engage him in conversation. However, I didn't have the same experience. He appeared to be shy, and I could well understand what an overwhelming force Julia's army of friends could be. Julia worried about moving out of her father's house, concerned that he would be lonely. She often cooked for him, and as the dutiful daughter attended functions at his club when he needed a partner, welcomed in his friends and knew his neighbours. But she knew that she must make the break, that her own independence must be a priority, and that Jimmy could not remain at her father's house forever. She had been given leave from work and was concerned that she could not keep work waiting indefinitely. It seems such a small concern now. However, it was important at the time. One of the many issues that time dissipates. She decided to wait until after the next round of surgery. She trusted her father to look after during her recovery, and her new residence would need a little love and paint before it would be truly habitable. Both her sisters were working, and at the new address there were visitors from England with the attendant's social obligations. Her father would be on hand to cook, clean and change her dressings. Surgery was scheduled for the 11th of March, 5 days after the fundraiser. There seemed to be no need for alarm, just the dread and the weariness of the pain.